Hello, everybody. Welcome to Created for This. I am joined today by my dear friend, Melissa Whaley. We are going to talk about finding success, using consistency, and fulfilling goals. Maybe you are in a season where it feels like it's impossible to be consistent with anything, even your daily Bible reading. So we are going to talk about some different roadblocks that you might encounter and some tips for success. Melissa is going to share from an ADHD perspective since that's her wheelhouse, that's her jam. And we are just so excited for you to join us. So Melissa, why don't you tell us a story about how you found success using consistency?
Yeah, well, if anything, consistency is the one thing that I struggled with the most, really from my teenage years on and in adulthood and being a business owner and a mom and all the things, right? It would get super overwhelmed and shut down and then not get anything done. And then kind of this cycle would perpetuate and perpetuate. So really, it's something I think I've been leaning into probably like the last 5 years for sure. I think the idea of consistency was intriguing to me and kind of a goal that I didn't understand how to achieve at all. And really, probably the last few years in particular, I feel like I found much more of my rhythms and found ways to actually be consistent in certain things through a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today.
So at that beginning of your story, using tools and tips, and honestly, it's one of those things that it does take effort. You have to decide to be consistent. I think that's the number one thing I want you guys to take away from this episode is deciding to be consistent.
Yeah.
Because without making that mindset switch of like, this is important, this is where I need to go, this is what I need to do, all the other stuff isn't going to happen because you have to be very mindful of your consistency, even when you don't want to. Like, I sat down to work out today. Right, I knew I had to work out today. I skipped it yesterday to give my muscles some rest after my 5K last weekend. And it was one of those, I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I just had to be like, you just got to press play. Like, it just needs to happen.
Yeah.
And I did it, and I felt better about it. Still didn't want to do it, but I did it. And it really is that mindset aspect of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head there with remembering that consistency doesn't happen by default. It doesn't happen without effort and decision and the mindfulness, and that we can't just all of a sudden find ourselves consistent with things that matter to us, right? We may be relatively consistent in eating food or showering, but even that can be hard in certain seasons of life, right?
Yeah, with little kids or I found that we have so many appointments for a dentist and then track on top of that. So even though my kids are a little bit older, I mean, you have a wider spread of what, 2 to 15?
Yeah,
is that what it is
3
now?
to 15, almost 16 now.
3 to 15. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Mine are 7 to 13. And it's still like, okay, when am I going to take a shower?
Yeah.
And it becomes, the self-care kind of goes by the wayside sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. What do you think, Danielle, is kind of that first step to becoming more consistent in something that we want to do that's not some big giant goal, but maybe consistent in the everyday things?
Definitely that decision of this is what I want to do and this is why I want to do it. So looking at why you're doing something. For me, one of the things that I've been really working on is praying for our family. We're in a season that's difficult. Lots of emotions, lots of life choices. I just need to be better about praying for my family. And that's an area that I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And our church actually had a month where we were all praying together at 6:36. We're basing it on Acts 6:36. So we all prayed at the same time. So I had put an alarm on my phone, and that was like
Nice.
the pray alarm.
Yeah.
And that became when we were done praying for the church, that became the time that I was praying for my family. So I just kept my alarm at 6:30, and sometimes I don't do it because I'm doing other things and I just get wrapped up in that. But like even last night I was watching the rerun of The Apprentice, and at 6:30 the alarm went off, so I paused The Apprentice and I spent time praying. So really that decision and the why behind it.
Yeah.
For me, the prayer is I need more Jesus into our family, wisdom, decision, and that only comes at the feet of Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really what has been so helpful for me too, is for a long time when I would attempt to set goals or want to be more consistent in something in my life, I would set this really lofty goal based on other people's ideas or expectations or suggestions, but I didn't really think about why I wanted to be consistent in that, whether it was exercising, moving my body, or whether it was being in the Word and studying the Bible. I just did it because, like, well, that was what I'm supposed to do, you know?
There's a lot of shoulds.
Yes.
Like, we should be doing this.
Yeah.
Yes, and you can should yourself to death.
I think one of my coach trainers was like, quit shooting all over yourself. Like, yeah. So just being able to bring it back to a why is this important to me? It doesn't have to be some huge reason why, but just having a why behind your choice to do something actually gives you purpose. And that's the thing. Like, if we're doing things with purpose rather than mindlessly going about our days, we mindfully go through our days. That's a big shift.
And giving permission. So I would say purpose and permission, because a lot of times as moms, we need to give ourselves permission to do something because we have so much of a tendency just to put everybody else above ourselves. And
Yeah.
we have to be selfish at some points. Like, there's boundaries and limits to the selfishness, but I would say that we need to be selfish in a way and give ourselves permission to do that as well.
Yeah. One of the things we actually, in one of our coaching areas, my husband and I, we talk about self-care, but then we kind of like self-care is actually more like self-responsibility, that we take responsibility for ourselves instead of expecting to be fine when we're not, say, fueling ourselves well or moving our body or getting adequate rest or showering, those sorts of things, getting time, space without kids screaming in our ears, like taking responsibility for ourselves so we can show up as the moms that we want to show up as, not the moms that are run ragged and feel like
ragey.
Yeah, I'm very well equipped.
That's me. Yep. If I don't do that, I get ragey and angry, and it's not a good thing.
Well, Danielle, I told you probably about an hour before we got on to record this podcast, my husband had to run some errands. We both work from home, so normally we're both at home most of the day. He had to run errands this morning, and I was with the kids and dealing with things around the house, and he came home and he just saw the look on my face. I'm like, I am trying not to melt down right now, but I'm so spent with the kids. I'm like, and I'm starving. Can you please go run to the store and get me lunch so I'm not brain dead when I record with Danielle?
You talked about your coaching trainer and coaching. For those that are new to you, can you give a brief synopsis of what your training is in? And then let's talk about some roadblocks that you've encountered as you've worked through this yourself and through your expertise in training.
Yeah. So like you, I have gone through the foundational training to be a Christian life coach. So we have that very much in common and love our same books. And once we completed that foundational Christian life coach training, my husband and I both also went through some trauma-informed coaching training. So we are also kind of dual trained in trauma-informed coaching and Christian life coaching. And so for me, a lot of what I bring into coaching with my clients is understanding their emotions and a little bit of their past, but more how their past influences their current choices in life. And where we can get stuck is sometimes there are stories from our past that are still playing out in our minds now that keep us stuck from becoming consistent in things that feel really important to us, but also feel completely overwhelming and impossible to even just start. And so I think one of those big roadblocks is kind of that story from our past that tells us we're incapable. I know as a mom, that was a huge one for me. I would get so overwhelmed and start to just shut down and withdraw because that's how I cope, right? And I would end up mindlessly scrolling. I would, hide in my room and watch shows or read my books or listen to my audiobooks, which, in and of itself, none of that is inherently bad, but I would withdraw from actually doing the things that I wanted to do because I was just so overwhelmed and felt like I was incapable, right? But that was a story coming from my past. And the reality was it was a lie that the enemy had put in my way. And so once I was able to re-engage in the truth of who I was, the truth of my identity in Christ, and my identity as a person that like, hey, I'm actually really smart and I'm really capable and I can do hard things. Like I don't always have to run from the hard things. So when I was able to re-engage the truth and kind of rewrite the story instead of getting stuck in that story that like, I'm incapable, I can't do this, I'm always failing everybody, everybody's always disappointed in me, right? All those stories that go through our heads. That truth really transforms things. And it's really like what Romans 12 is talking about. It says, renew your mind. The renewing of your mind is like, hey, hit yourself with that truth and think about, is that story playing in your head actually true?
And those stories can be so powerful, good and bad. And that's one of the things, even this past weekend, I was like, I am a failure at motherhood. I'm failing my kids right now. I'm failing at everything. And I kept asking myself, I was like, what is true? What is true in this instance, in this story? So reminding us about what the Bible says.
Yeah.
What is true from who God is, because if we are made in his image, then we are like God, to a sense.
Yes.
Being made holy like Jesus through salvation. And it took some time. It took days, actually, for me sitting with this feeling and being like, okay, what is going on? Where's the root of this? Why am I feeling this way?
Mm-hmm.
And then how can I work through this?
Yeah.
So that's a good reason to be in the Word of God repeatedly and consistently, because you have to know those things in order to use that truth in your life.
Yeah.
And also have good friends.
You're great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So some things just from my expertise as an accountability coach, somebody that focuses on rest. Burnout is a huge roadblock to consistency. Frankly, and some of it was, I was hearing burnout in some of your story, which you were saying was, I'm tired. Like, this is a lot. I'm not getting adequate rest.
Yep.
I'm not taking the time for myself. I've got kids. I've got a business. I've got a husband. I've got a house that looks like a bomb exploded. And I didn't take time to gather my thoughts for the day. Or I haven't taken, my friend always tells me, I went and took a mental health walk. And I'm like, that's so good because it's how you refresh. So finding the things that you feel refreshed by, you're rejuvenated, you're feeling like you can rejoice in the Lord, rejoice just in daily things. Those are ways that we can really not be burnt out. We can work back from that burnout or those feelings of burnout. And alongside that comes time management. So when we think about what we're going to do for consistency, what is it that we're doing and how does it look in our schedule?
And that's why I love your time blocking sheets. I use them. I've been using them for years and they're just amazing because sometimes like I'm normally a very digital planner person and like Google Calendar. I live and die by my Google Calendar. Weeks and visualizing my kind of more of the consistent things that I want to accomplish every week. Where am I going to fit those in to the rhythms of my week? Being able to put it out on paper is really helpful.
Yes. No, I agree. And I've done that with our own weekly schedules, figuring out, okay, this is what our homeschool time looks like. This is very minimal business right now is happening for me. Sports, piano, and having that and saying, okay, this is my pocket of time here, or I can work out during lunchtime, or hubby goes to the gym here and I can walk here. There's so many things that when we look at being consistent, we have to take into account. It's not just we're going to shove this in and make it happen or hope it happens.
Right.
We need to actually prepare time for that.
Yeah.
What are your tips or things that you found helpful when it comes to coming at consistency from somebody that has ADHD or ADD or anything? Like, I feel like moms are just really scattered anyway.
That's
so
true.
Maybe
it's very true.
It's all relatable.
It's all relatable. You know, I love that you mentioned that you set an alarm to remind you to pray because I love alarms and reminders. Like they are very much a part of my day for little things and for big things. So, you know, I have different reminders for myself on my phone, even things like reminding me to take my supplements, reminding me, you know, I do intermittent fasting as you do. And so reminding me to stop eating food in the evening, like you're done, you're cut off. So for my health, there's reminders like that. And then for our household, we are an Alexa house. So we have devices all over. And for me, it's been great because it shifts a lot of me being the bad guy and like telling kids, hey, you need to do this. We set up routines within the system. And so those reminders go off and they're in central places of the house. And it's just that little signal. Because sometimes all you need is a little signal. Like you don't even need it to say the words. But when you hear that sound, you're like, your brain is triggered. Oh, it's time to do that thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Things, music, smell, senses of smell are really powerful.
Yeah. The reminders have been a huge part for me. Other things, you know, that seem to work particularly well for me with my ADHD is gadgets. So like I have a Fitbit smartwatch. I just got this for Christmas. I was not using anything this fancy for a long time. Just, you know, get what's in your budget. But for me to be able to look down and see like, oh, I've got this many steps today, or I've got this activity level. For a long time, I didn't have any specific goal associated with it, but to be able to see the number over time helped me understand what my activity level was. So then I could make a choice. Do I want to increase that? And then I have something that tells me easily without me having to think or track or anything like that. Tell me you have increased or you haven't increased, and I can, you know, so it's built-in accountability. A lot of sense.
You're being a lazy bum.
Yeah, literally, like when it tells me you need to stand up, you've got 100 more steps for this hour. I'm like, well, great. Thank you so much, smartwatch.
I've heard Garmin is really angry. Like Garmin watches are really snarky, although that might be just for like walk tracking.
Maybe.
Or people are using it for like tracking their races. Yeah. There's funny memes out there. But I have an Oura ring. So that was my option because I can turn the Bluetooth off on this. And that was one thing with me. I didn't want to have the Bluetooth on there. But yeah, stress level. My ring is like, you're so stressed. I'm like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
I know. But and on your sleep, I don't know if you wear yours at night, but
I do.
Yeah, I wear my watch at night now. I wasn't sure how I was going to like that because all my previous, you know, fitness trackers, I did not wear at night. And I was like, wow, just being able to see the quality of my sleep over a week data and be like, today is not going to be a day to push hard. Today is going to be a day to do the essentials, which I think that brings another really topic to this idea of consistency, which is like understanding what's essential. Like, what are your priorities?
Yes.
Like, what do you think about like prioritizing stuff versus just trying to be consistent in everything all the time?
Well, it's funny you talk about sleep because sleep is so important for my mental health, for my hormone health. And those are areas that I've been working on, being consistent, sleeping well, like actually sleeping. And so knowing what like how much sleep I'm getting has been beneficial. So that's a priority because my health is a priority. If I'm not taking we go back to the self-care or the taking care of ourselves. If I'm not sleeping well, I can't be 100% on for my family. So that's, I always give people like 5 priorities. Like you need to have 5 priorities because we're not super women and we have other things going on in our lives. So taking care of myself, drinking water, sleep, working out, steps. I have a step count too. We've gotten really nerdy in our old age. I will say, Melissa and I have known each other for like 10 years. We've gotten so much nerdier. It's great.
We nerd out about tech and software and new devices.
Yeah. My family obviously is going to be a priority.
Yeah.
What are the things that we need to be consistent? Because our kids thrive on schedules. As much as they balk schedules, kids need routine to function well. Yeah. And I think it can be really hard when, number one, they're fighting back. When you don't have energy to deal with that, if you're a military spouse and your partner is deployed or, gone, solo parents, single parents, all that, it can be really hard when you don't have that energy to be consistent with your schedules.
Yes.
So again, self-care, but also understanding where you're at. So my season of life looks different from Melissa's, looks different from yours. And it could be that you only have 3 priorities right now. And that's okay because you can be consistent and then you can work on building blocks. So I also like to have my clients have things that they're consistent at that are going to be those building blocks. So taking care of yourself, taking care of your family and your home, and then adding on top of that. You can't expect to, like you said, do everything all at once, all the time. So if we have priorities and we're focusing on certain areas, and I would add prayerfully.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because it can be so easy to let the world be like, oh, you need to have $1 million and you need to sacrifice your business for your marriage. Or you need to run a marathon because everybody's marathon training these days. Prayerfully consider what your priorities are.
Yeah.
Do you have sets of priorities, Melissa?
Yeah, it was great. I had a classmate who we like coached each other. And so one of the wonderful things that she coached me through last year was kind of figuring out first, like the categories, like you were saying, like the home, myself, the family. And I even broke it down even smaller than that in some areas where it was like, okay, I need time with my husband, I need time with my kids, and I need time for myself. And so what I did is I created those boxes and then I put in like, what is the most important thing? Like if I only get one thing done in that category each day, what am I going to feel the best having done? So for me with the kids, it was like, I want to connect with each kid for 5 minutes a day. Okay. I have 6 kids. That's not a short amount of time in my day.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah. Right. But also it was a reasonable goal to say, I want to connect with each kid for 5 minutes a day. Not, I want to spend an hour with 6 kids every day. Okay. Well, that's my entire day.
Right.
That's all my waking hours. So, but to be able to sit and listen and engage. And sometimes it's like 2 kids at the same time, but as long as they feel like they're getting my attention, then that feels good. That I don't get to the end of the day and I'm like, I literally haven't spoken to Callum at all today other than to tell him to clean his mess,
There are days I feel like that's what I do.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, okay, that was my number one priority in my kids category. With my husband, it was more time because, fostering a healthy, strong marriage is really important to me. a lot of what I do is marriage coaching. So I have to practice what I preach, right? And so the amount of time and the types of things that I am prioritizing, spending time with RJ and how we're spending time together and what that looks like. Right now, a lot of that looks like we walk laps around our front yard holding hands.
Aw, cute.
Yeah,
And it's multi-purpose.
exactly.
Way to be efficient.
I know. It was I don't even remember. Both of us got fitness trackers for Christmas. It was so funny. We didn't even plan to do that for each other, but we did. And it has completely changed the game for our activity levels and how we spend quality time together. So the fact that we can walk laps around our front yard where we have these big shade trees and it's very nice because we live in a hot climate. And we hold hands and we get to connect with each other, check in, talk. And, sometimes we're just talking shop and, about work stuff, or we're talking about kid stuff. And a lot of times we're dreaming and coming up with new ideas and kind of what's next on the horizon. So that has been really great. And that has filled, again, that priority of my husband block. And then for myself, I listed a bunch of different things that I would enjoy doing that kind of engage my brain, engage the creative side of myself, because those are two things, especially with my ADHD, that are very important that I need to engage my brain. I cannot be bored during the day. So when I find those pockets of times, or when I put those pockets of times in that are hey, this is me time, I get to decide, do I want to work on a creative business thing? Do I want to read a book that's really been interesting me? Do I want to do a project around the house that sounds fun? And that gives me enough space that I kind of in the ADHD world, we call it chasing the dopamine. So it's, what is the thing that actually sounds exciting for me today or this week? I give myself the freedom to choose that. And it still counts as this consistent, it's the consistent of doing the things that engage my mind and my creativity. It's not about, I have to write or I have to do graphic design 3 days a week and the other 2 days a week I'm doing something else. It's just more what's in this box that fuels that goal.
I was going to say chase the fun.
Yeah.
Because you love fun, you love adventure.
Exactly.
That's one of your core values,
Yes.
is you have to have adventure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love that you mentioned core values, because we've talked about this many times on our different episodes. And I know you talk about it a lot on the podcast, but when your goals and the things that you want to be consistent in align with your core values, it falls into place much smoother than, like we said earlier, trying to make some goal of consistency in an area that is more like someone else saying you should do that. So, good.
Yep. And we'll link. Melissa and I have done many episodes over the 114 episodes that I've done.
Yeah.
So we can link some of those in the show notes. And then Melissa do you still have your workbook on core
Yeah,
values?
we still have our family core values worksheet.
So that's important to figure out as well, because then you're able to pull it all together. Because you might think oh, there's something that I want to be consistent in, and you start doing it and you're this isn't fulfilling at all. This is just, it's not fulfilling me. And I think that's actually one of the tips there is to make it fun.
Yeah.
And to make it something that you're enjoying. Because if you're not enjoying something, it leads to burnout faster. So
yeah,
there's obviously things we have to do, like cleaning the bathrooms, that are not fun. But it's good to be consistent in those cleaning bathrooms.
Yes.
Life with boys.
Yeah.
What else did you want to cover?
What was I thinking?
I can read some more of the stuff that I have.
Yeah.
And you can.
I was thinking something about you said about exercise. Oh, taking breaks. Giving yourself room for breaks is good too.
Yes.
Right.
It is. It's good for muscle growth when you take breaks. And you're not supposed to run every single day. There is a rest day for a reason.
Yeah.
So that's important, which a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing with any goal or task that we have a desire to be consistent in, that we not get too hung up on perfectionism and, like you said, all or nothing thinking. I think that's another place that we can get really stuck, is that all or nothing thinking.
Sure.
Where maybe we've been really consistent for 2 weeks and then we miss a day And then we just give up, throw up our hands and stop, decide, well, I missed a day, so I'm just going to quit. Right? Instead of saying, okay, I just got to start back up again tomorrow.
Or people will hate themselves. Like I'm in a running group on Facebook and people absolutely hate on themselves for taking a day off.
Wow.
It's like you can't do that. Like you have to give yourself breaks.
Yeah.
It affects your performance. It affects your physical health. It affects your mental health. You have to take those breaks. And the perfection can really like just derail you, like you said. That was actually one of the things on my list was don't strive for perfection.
Yes.
Just do imperfectly. And it's okay to be imperfect.
Yeah.
When you're doing these.
One of my mentors has a phrase that he reminds us of regularly, which is imperfect action beats inaction every time. So, yeah.
That is a good one.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like we've got step goals, but if I don't hit my step goal 1 out of 7 days during the week, even 2 out of 7 days a week, I'm not beating myself up. I'm just, instead, I can look back and go, okay, why didn't I hit my step goal that day? Is it because it was just a really heavy client day and I had to be at my desk most of the day? Was it because we were driving somewhere?
I was going to say, it's all the driving.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much driving, Danielle, right? So, or was it because I just was exhausted and I needed a rest day? Able to take a step back and look at the bigger picture instead of being narrow on one goal of like, oh, I didn't hit my goal. Go, okay, well, what was the big picture of that day or that week? Or really even looking at our goals and saying, what is my season of life? You know, we kind of talked about that. Yep. You're in a different season than you've been in past years where business isn't super high priority because you've got kids and homeschooling and a really busy husband.
And a really busy husband.
Yeah. So, you know, and I was in that season for quite a few years. And then now this year, I'm picking business back up because my youngest is going to turn 4 and my oldest is going to turn 16 and she's able to help a lot more. And I can lock my door and do client calls.
The world doesn't fall apart.
Yes, like they are capable of managing themselves for an hour at a time. So, yeah, it definitely shifts our perspective on things. And so that's also, I think, been a big mindset shift for myself when I actually stopped to recognize the season of life that I was in and that my goals for consistency in certain things had to match the season of life I'm in. You know, if I'm in, just as the seasons throughout the year change and what we can do in those different seasons, especially depending on what part of the country or the world you live in, you know, in winter, Danielle cannot go running in negative degrees very easily.
Nope. There are people that do.
Yes.
But I am not one of them.
Right.
I will stick to my treadmill. It's been a long winter. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. Right.
But simultaneously, you can't do that in the summer because you'll die.
I'm the opposite. If I try to go like walk a lot in the summer when it's 110 degrees outside, I'm going to pass out. So I have to get creative in either like shifting, going, okay, I got to get up early and get my walk in early in the morning before I die. Or I need to shift and go to indoor activities to keep my steps and activity levels up because that's important to me right now in this season of life. There have been other seasons of life where physical activity and exercise was not at all a priority, right? Like I was in survival mode. It was like, keep the kids alive, make sure you eat food. That was what I could do in that season of life.
Yep.
And I didn't guilt myself, and I don't guilt my past self for what I was capable of accomplishing in that season.
Right, because capacity is so different. And I think that's something else we need to talk about when we look at consistency is what is our capacity?
Yeah.
So seasons of life, capacity, how much can you do? I had somebody talk to me today and they were like, Danielle, I just don't have that capacity anymore. Like I thought I could keep doing all the things that I'm doing and I'm just not having that right now. But their husband's gone on a long-term assignment for the military. They've got a business. They homeschool. There's stuff falling apart in their house. Like it is not the time to add more and to feel like, oh, I should be doing this stuff. So capacity definitely changes and it's something that we need to recognize because when we're doing something and we have a bunch of capacity, that's great. But then you also look at what's the toll that it's taking on my body? What is the ramifications of where I'm at right now? Because capacity is great, but if you start to add too much, then you get to that burnout level and your body and your adrenals and your everything just starts to shut down.
Yeah, which we both experienced, and it was not fun.
Yep. Not fun.
No.
I don't recommend
No.
it. That's why I talk about rest.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that's even important as we're looking and scheduling things into our days and our weeks to make that room for margin and not put every minute in the day scheduled and think like, oh, I'm going to squeeze this into here. Because like, if you're a mom, you know you're going to get interrupted at least 3 times on 3 different tasks throughout the day.
Margin.
Yes.
Yep. Margin.
All the
Margin's
margin.
so important. And driving. You talk about so much driving.
Yes.
Like leaving ahead of time so that you're not feeling stressed to get to where you're going.
Yeah.
Because that's also something you deal with more traffic than I do.
Fine.
California, just everybody's on the road all the time.
If we're leaving town, because we work at home now, like we really try not to leave town that often. But I even just because I have time blindness, right? That is a big part of my ADHD, and recognizing that I have to give myself so much more time than I think I need to get out of the house and get somewhere. Whereas my brain is like, oh, it takes 10 minutes to get there, so I need to leave 10 minutes before I'm supposed to be there. It's like, well, Melissa, you have to park the car and you have to get out of the car, and you think you're leaving the house, but then somebody's going to cry and say, I don't want you to leave. Or you're going to get in the car and one of the kids is going to be like, I don't have any shoes.
I have to go to the bathroom.
Right. Or I forgot my fill in the blank.
Yep.
So, yeah, a lot of padding for travel time. It's been important.
And I've had a client that's also timed herself to know how much time each thing takes, because she similarly doesn't recognize how much time it takes her. She's like, oh, it only takes me 20 minutes to do this. And she's like, Danielle, it took me an hour. And this is why it's taking so long to get everything done.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, great. So we can use that to adequately plan your schedule. So
that's so smart. Like actually timing yourself.
Yes. It has been eye-opening for her. That's one of the biggest outcomes from this last year of working together. She's like, this has been huge because now I know what to expect and I don't have to start struggling for time.
Yeah.
She can adequately plan.
And I bet she's not beating herself up nearly.
No.
Like, because, the past things, I should be able to get this done in this amount of time.
Right.
But I never do, so I must be the failure. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the last things that I wanted to leave you guys with, and Melissa probably has some closing thoughts as well, is have accountability. Melissa and I have shared multiple ways that we engage accountability through Alexa, through alarms, through devices like the Oura Ring or her smartwatch. We both have paid for accountability. I have an accountability coach that I work with through Faster Way for fat loss. So I'm actively paying for a coach to help me stay on track with all my macros and my workouts and life. Actually, she's just great. I love her to death. We've been working together for a couple of years.
Fantastic.
I get to tell her all my things, and she's like, Danielle, you got to rest. You got to give yourself time and space. And so it's been great. So accountability is huge. Have friends or family or hire an accountability coach to help you with your consistency, getting things done. And if you work with me, I look at big picture and I look at holistic. So it's what season of life, what are the things that you're doing or not doing that can cause you to not be hitting this consistently. Looking at what's going on in your life, in your world. Where are you at in your cycle? That's one of the biggest things that I ask my clients. I'm like, where are you in your cycle? And they're like, I'm here. And I'm like, oh.
I was going to say, we need to make sure to mention to go back and listen to the episode about syncing to your cycle.
Yes.
That's
a good one.
That will help you also figure out what your energy levels are out the month.
Correct.
When to be really consistent in certain types of activities and when to be really consistent in much lower energy types of activities.
Exactly. Let me see if I can pull this episode number up for you guys. Go ahead, Melissa, with what you were going to conclude with.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. Like having the accountability, having the people, the community, right? Because we don't ever succeed in life in a vacuum. We're not created to live in isolation. And so whether your accountability is people in your community, people in your church, moms in your mom group, or online friends, or joining different challenges, things like that, or hiring a coach, right? I know I coach a lot of people who are going through transitions in their lives. Like I've been really enjoying it. I've actually been coaching a number of college students, like college senior girls who are about to
That's so
graduate.
fun.
It has been so much fun, but it's just really neat to look at someone's life and go, yeah, what season of life are you in? And what are the most important things, and what's holding you back? What are those fears that are creeping in that are going to keep you from taking that step into something?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The episode Melissa was referencing is episode 101, Accelerating Your Productivity with Cycle Syncing.
Awesome.
And that is with my guest, Macy Maxon, who is the founder of Garnu Feminine Products, period products for women only.
Love it.
All right. Well, you guys, you know how to reach out to us. Social media is always a great way to connect with us. Hey, Melissa Whaley is Melissa. I'm Danielle.m.Roberts. And I'll have all that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hit us up. Let us know what we're talking about next.
Go be consistent.
And go be consistent. Pick one thing. Yes. Action item for you guys. Pick one thing to be consistent for 30 days or 45 days. Which do you prefer, actually?
I say always longer,
Longer.
The whole 21 days to make a habit is total.
Oh, yeah, no.
Not based in any research. So go longer if you can. But, start with something small and then work your way up. That's another thing about building the consistency is start with the small piece of a bigger goal.
One Bible verse a day.
Yep. There you go.
Or one chapter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa.
Well, thanks, Danielle. I always love being with you.